First one here, last one.
You don't have to know. Just get her there and they set her right. Probably drag it crazy too.
First one here, last one.
You don't have to know. Just get her there and they set her right. I'll support you.
Position there because less reflection off my bare forehead. Camera's position up there.
I don't like this. I hate him. I did. We can interrupt him all day.
Brown, they're like, yeah, we look out of place now.
Never normal.
Oh.
Administrator. I mean,
That was fierce. Good thing I got a little knowledge in there. My phone was on. Forgot to turn that one off. Really close.
It's 4 o'clock.
that clock is wrong. Yeah, you can't.
Order the April 4th hybrid meeting of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners work session. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reviewing the agenda. We have a roll call. Oh, roll call. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Present.
Commissioner Embry, Commissioner Jazinski,
Present.
Commissioner Engler,
Here.
Commissioner Swaney,
Here.
Commissioner Marino, Commissioner Hope. All present, Mr. Vice Chairman, except for Commissioner Embry and Chairman Hope.
Thank you. We have a section for general public comments. We have presentation special reports, two, one from Michigan State University Extension, and we have Director Eric Kowalski here to provide that. And then we'll have an update on the Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility by Park Construction. Nothing in terms of appointments to boards and commissions tonight. Under committee reports. Finance Administration.
Finance and Administration is all set, Vice Chair.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs.
The Criminal Justice and County Affairs set.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Vice Chair.
Thank you. We have no intergovernmental affairs, nothing under Administrator Controller. Under unfinished business, we have nothing. Under new business, we have two items. First one will be looking at changing the meeting time for County Finance and Administration. And the second one, setting the date for the goal setting session for the county board, which is a special meeting. Then we have another opportunity for general public comments, announcements. And at the end, we'll have a closed session allowed under Section 8 of Open Meetings Act to consult with attorney regarding settlement strategy in connection with the national opioid litigation. Then adjournment. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
Support. It's been moved and supported to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have an agenda. Okay, we have time for general public comments. Anybody in the audience? Is there anybody online? All right, well, there'll be a second opportunity later in the meeting. We'll move on to presentations and special reports. First, we'll have Michigan State University Extension provide us an update, and we have Director Eric Kowalski and Michigan State University Dairy Educator Cora Omeka.
Akaba, yep. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for allowing us to be here today. It definitely feels like spring is starting to happen a little bit. So I'll just do a very brief overview because we have a specialist here today, and so I don't want to take time away from her. But just a couple of updates. One, I think I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Paul Gross's retirement. You know, he served our community and our organization for over 31 years, and he'll be greatly missed. But I am happy to share with that Monica Jean will be taking over coverage for Isabella County. So, excuse me, my singing voice isn't really there today. But Monica Jean will be taking over the field crops for Isabella County, and so during part of that Paul's transition, Monica worked a lot with him side by side, so there shouldn't be any lapse in services or coverage. I also wanted to provide an update that I know soil test kits were an item that were talked about and shared. I am happy to share that we are able to provide those now. So they will be through A&L is actually going to be doing the testing, but we are through MSU Extension doing all the processing for those. So congratulations and thank you to our AABI leadership that worked through that process, because that you know, there were a lot of moving parts. The cost for the home and garden is $26 and the commercial is $18. So you can pick those up at the MSU Extension office. And then also, almost my last update, I'm happy to share that we recently filled, which was my old position, the farm stress behavioral health educator. And we did fill that with a local person. They are scheduled to start on May 1st. And so they'll be providing behavioral health supports, continuing on with the teletherapy program, and really connecting with and engaging with the agricultural community and providing those supports to those that are in need. So with that, there's my 50,000-foot overview of a few things that have happened over the last couple of months. And then I'm very happy to introduce Cora Akama, who is a dairy educator who is housed physically in Mecosta County, but is going to share some of the updates. And Isabella County is one of the areas that she services. And so I guess with that, Cora.
Thank you, Eric. As Eric said, my name is Cora Akama. My family dairy farms out in Mecosta County, actually just 5 minutes north of Six Lakes. So that's a good landmark for a lot of folks. We actually moved to Michigan in 1999, specifically in the hopes of dairy farming and creating a farm for the next generation to take over and pursue. And so my family is in that process right now. And I have stepped into the role of a dairy educator with Michigan State University Extension, focused on really helping farmers take their farms to the next level, looking at, okay, we're already doing great things. How do we make the best even better? And so wanted to provide y'all with just a quick update of, or an overview of dairy farming in Isabella County. So if you do have the handouts, it's just going to be on that first slide right there. So according to the 2017 USDA census, there is a new census that was done in 2022. We don't have those numbers yet, so there is an update coming. Milk sales were the highest category for animal products sold in Isabella County, which was $37 million. Isabella County has the 15th highest milk production by county in the state. Currently, there are 36 licensed dairy farms in Isabella County. And one of our crown jewels for the state of Michigan, Michigan rates #1 in the nation for milk production per cow and 6th in the nation for total milk production. These are incredibly amazing numbers when you look at the number of cows that we have in Michigan and the number of farms that we have in Michigan. We can really only achieve these numbers with top quality animal care and management. So this is very, very huge for the state. And then Michigan's dairy industry contributes $15.7 billion to the state's overall economy. So dairy is not going anywhere in the state of Michigan. We are really setting that new level of other states and other farms to get to where we're at, to continue to progress United States dairy industry. So going into the second slide, I'm going to give you an overview of what I do within my role as an extension educator for our dairy farmers. So we focus on connecting with farms in person and online. With the events that happened over the past few years, we've had to shift on how we deliver our educational materials and how we deliver information. And so that has transitioned into starting podcasts and providing online webinars. And so what we do is we produce 2 seasons of a podcast per year. Typically it's spring and fall. And this includes interviews with other experts, with researchers, with local folks in the area that serve our farmers. They talk to us about what they do, their services. For example, speaking with a lawyer about succession planning. What are the things to think about when you're trying to progress to that next generation? How do you turn the farm over that is a win-win situation for everybody involved? We also we focus a lot on workforce development. And so it was actually held at the Soaring Eagle Casino. We had the Great Lakes Regional Dairy Conference, and we held a herdsperson session, which was offered in both English and Spanish, where we were able to cater to our managers on dairy farms and speak to them about how to communicate with other employees, how to set up a healthy dynamic between employees, how to talk about some things that might not be as comfortable, where people are worried, well, if I bring up a safety concern, will I get looked at as, oh no, am I just complaining? So looking over a lot of different concepts, not only how to manage cattle, how to take care of cattle well, but also how to take care of your people well. And then we also have a strong presence on social media. And that photo in the lower right corner is actually my colleague Paola. She is what I believe to be one of our strongest assets on the dairy team. She is fluent in both Spanish and English, and she's actually pursuing her PhD right now at Michigan State University. And she has been a strong mentor within my role. That's just her performing a parlor assessment where we are looking at a bunch of different components of the milking procedure and seeing, okay, what are areas of opportunity on this farm? What are areas of opportunities where we can promote sanitation, promote cleanliness, promote animal handling, all of these things. So we really focus on how to make the best better. And so in the third slide, that's a variety of services that we provide from the dairy team. So I'm not going to go through the whole list, but we, in the main chunks, the main categories, we focus on overall farm assessments, on-farm training, and value-added services. Within that fourth slide, I'm actually going to highlight some of our value-added services that we have been strongly promoting throughout the state. So we're really focused on, or within my role, I am really focused on crisis planning and being prepared for those situations in the future that we all hope never happen. And so there are 2 separate programs going on right now. One is called E-Rail, which stands for the Emergency Response for Accidents Involving Livestock. And so this is where, with MSU Extension, we collaborate and work alongside first responder teams to train those teams on how to handle animals within an accident and how to respond to those situations. And so a lot of these folks that we work with have not had an animal or farming background. And so when they approach, or when they respond to, say, truck tractor turnover where there's 55 cull sows on there, they're like, what does that even mean, first off? And then it's, how do we even get into the trailer? What do we do with all of these animals? How do we handle this situation? And so we take a lot of that guesswork out for them and start with the basics of, these are what these animals are. This is what animal behavior is. This is what these animals are experiencing. And here's what trailers look like. Here's how you get into a trailer. And so we are working with, different counties, but also different groups of responder teams to actually house response trailers throughout the state. Right now, we currently have 3. We are hoping to have around 12 to 15 throughout the state, where those trailers house and hold accident response equipment, such as gates, such as fencing, such as halting, such as animal handling equipment for these responders to safely safely get these animals out of those trailers. And then if need be, call in state veterinarians or local veterinarians to assess and triage these animals and then further on the line. So we're doing a lot of work. It's really taken off recently. We've been asked to provide quite a number of trainings across the state. We have about 2 trailers or 2 groups that are in the process of housing a trailer. And we're very excited that this is really kind of taking the first responder teams by storm. And it's really nice to see that they are just as excited and see the need for this type of equipment on their teams, because mainly it's a lot of firefighters that would respond to these teams, but even I would say police officers or animal control, they're like, well, we don't know how to handle a 1,500-pound cow. So what do you do when you have a trailer of 20 of them? So a lot of those things. And my background is livestock behavior and welfare. That's one of my specialties. And so this is an area where it really fuels my fire. And I get to help people understand the importance of what we're doing, not only for the welfare and safety of the animals, but also for all the people that are involved in this process. It's the truck driver, it's the farmer, it's that location where those animals are being sent to. And we've had the situation where some animals are actually crossing international lines. And so helping these teams navigate those situations effectively so that we can provide them with the resources and the guidance so they know how to respond and handle those situations. So that's one part. And then another part is actually on-farm crisis preparedness plans. And so me and a couple of other educators in the United Dairy Industry of Michigan are actually partnering with dairy farms to set up crisis preparedness plans of how to approach situations such as a fire, such as a tornado, all of these things where, you know, having a plan in place really helps making those tough decisions prior to when you're in the midst of everything. And so Jolene Griffin at United Dairy Industry in Michigan has been a massive resource within this. And it's really fun to work alongside her because she brings in a lot of great experience, knowledge, and she has such a heart for this community. And it's really wonderful to work alongside someone who has that same passion and understands the need for this. And when you're dealing with hundreds of cattle, you never know what you're going to have to do and how to relocate all of them. So slide number 5, this is just a little advert for it. So Breakfast on the Farm, that is a yearly event that we try to host, or it's put on by Michigan State University Extension. It's where a farm opens up their, where a family opens up their farm for the public to tour and learn about the dairy or learn about their industry. We've had with beef farmers, crop farmers. A lot of times it's dairy farms because usually they have enough area to hold a lot of people and move them around. And so this year it is being hosted at DeGrenzor Dairy, and it's happening on Saturday, July 29th, 2023. The event is happening from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. where breakfast is served from 9 to 12. We want to draw everyone's attention to it because it's a great way to get the public out, help everyone learn about the dairy industry. And it's only a 30-minute drive from here, and it's actually my family's dairy farm. So little plug there. But we would be happy to have any of you and all of you come visit, ask questions, family, friends, all of that. And so last slide is just my contact information. If anyone has any questions, any follow-up, wanting to learn some more, I'm more than happy to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions right now from the commissioners or comments?
Yes, I have just one. With your numbers being so good, do you attribute that to just cleanliness, or do you attribute that small farms, big farms? What's the push to give us such good numbers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I really attribute those numbers to is, in all reality, Michigan dairy farms, regardless of size, we are very progressive in not only sanitation and cleanliness, but also quality of the milk as a whole. We really push for animal care, but also what we like to call is antibiotic stewardship. And so we're really focused on doing preventative management before a problem ever comes to fruition. And so I'd say it's really about management, looking for all the little nitpicky things that we can say, you know, we're going to take care of this now before it gets into a bigger issue, and figure out overall animal care, animal handling, maintenance. I'd say that's a big one, is just really being on top of those day-to-day tasks where you're really focused on what's best for these animals. That really helps create quality milk, because to be frank, we get paid for quality. And so we get an incentive where if we provide the processors with higher quality milk, we do get an incentive. And so, you know, incentives work. and it's also, for dairy farmers, we take pride in what we do. And when we can say we're #1 of milk production per cow, but we also have stellar, impeccable quality of milk, that's just, that takes the cake for everything, because we're like, yes, this is why we do what we do, because we want to provide a wholesome quality product for our consumers. You're welcome.
Mr. Engler.
You would have a question. You were talking earlier about the soil tests. Now, are you gonna be able to have access to the lab to get them online? Because I know sometimes snail mail, sometimes it takes a while to get there, so it's convenient to go right to get immediate results, or will that be? Okay. Okay, well, it's a big, okay. It's just, it's a big advantage sometimes, especially if you got an issue and you're trying to figure it out that you want to know right away. We'll run into each other. I don't need it right away.
Just want to say I'm a representative from the county board to the district of several, a number of counties north of us. And I think it includes Gratiot, but I'm always pleased and to go to the meetings and learn of new services that are provided by MSUE. The extension is a tremendous resource for our citizens, and it's not only in ag, it's youth, but it's in so many other categories too, that you can get information and be at the top of your game. Appreciate it, Eric and Cora, for joining us and giving us this update.
Have a great day.
The next presentation is from Clark Construction. Project Manager Heidi Heights Kendo will give us an update on the Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility update. It's online.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Heidi.
Just kind of a quick update of where we're at with construction on the jail. Exciting news, we were able to just break ground last Tuesday. We got, I guess we technically didn't break ground, but we were out there doing soil erosion measures and make sure that got all started. And we moved some equipment out there to start working on getting the drives cut in. And then this past week, we were out there yesterday as well, continue with those drives. We will be putting site gates in tomorrow. Today we did have a rain delay. I mean, it sounds like up in Mount Pleasant, we had quite a bit of rain yesterday. So they didn't want to get their equipment out there and get all muddy and stuff like that and haul off any dirt onto the roads and stuff. So they'll be back out there tomorrow. We're going to continue with getting those drives in, and then we're going to start stripping topsoil. And from there, moving into start grading for the remaining of the drives, get back to where the building is going to be set. And the next couple weeks here, continue with topsoil removal. And then we'll be working on getting the building pad started here in the next about 2 weeks or so is when the building pad will be started. So hopefully the weather will cooperate. Sounds like we got a few more days of rain, but then we're starting to look at have a dry spell for a while, which is great news for us since we're out there working in the dirt. So that's kind of where we're at for the next couple weeks. So I don't know if there's any questions or
Questions?
It's still early in construction, so I don't have a whole lot of updates right now, but once we get further into it, I'll have a lot longer presentation for you, so.
Well, I was wondering how, like you said, the weather hasn't been very cooperative from snow and cold to wet weather. And like you said, tomorrow we're looking at more wet weather. So
Yeah, so
wishing
hopefully we
whatever-
don't get too much, but we'll find out tomorrow morning when they decide to call off. So, but it sounds like today was pretty wet out there. So
We're very excited to see the project continuing. Thank you.
absolutely. Yes, it's great news. And Sheriff has been great and he's going to make sure that security measures, he's going to make sure that patrols during the evening hours are going to start driving out there just to make sure we don't have any problems. We do have porta johns out there and that's a good, people, they find out there's stuff down there, they're going to drive down there, tip the porta johns and, create all havoc and stuff. So he's going to make sure that we have security there, which is great news. And because it is a kind of a dead end area. So
Thank you for the update.
you're welcome. Have a good afternoon or good evening, I should say.
Moving on to committee reports. The first one we have is Finance and Administration Committee. And Commissioner Embry, would you mind doing the invoices and adjustment list?
The invoice list for March 17, 2023. The amount of $172,312.30. The March 24th, 2023 invoice list in the amount of $998,556.51. And the adjustment list dated March 30th, 2023.
Okay. I did see a couple from the sheriff's department, payments for, don't have it before me. It was. What was it? No, there were a couple of bills that were paid out by the sheriff. I think it was seized property and it was returned. I hadn't seen those before. Do you know what that was?
Yeah, we ran manual checks, but no.
Sorry, I forgot to turn my voice on there. So yes, what we did was they made the adjustment list, I think, because we had cut manual checks for that. So it was seized funds at the sheriff's office that I think the sheriff's office was holding until the end of an investigation or a judgment or something. And then those funds were able to be released. And so when we cut a manual check, it can't make the invoice list, right? That happened prior. That's why a manual check goes on the adjustment list. And you can see the amounts of these monies owed to these people were enough that I think basically we just didn't want to wait the 2-week cycle of AP, get these folks their money that they're owed back.
Generated from a scam report that my detective ended up taking, and there was several tens of thousands of dollars, multiple people around the country. They were with the FBI and were able to identify victims. There was a third-party person in our county that was receiving those funds, and they would disseminate those funds out. That person we dealt with and locally here, but then we ended up seizing these checks and bank accounts. We had to kind of reissue back as much money as we could to these people who had been frauded out. Most of them elderly, but it was in the tens of thousands of dollars that we were able to get back to those folks. Yeah, that check, it was 80,000. One of them in our evidence room for a while. We investigated it, so I think they were happy to get that back.
Yeah, there were 2 checks around 3,500, looks like 3,500 each. And then the large one was just over 115,000. So I'm sure they were excited to get their their funds back. Mhm.
Thank you for the explanation. Any other questions on the invoice list or the adjustment list? I guess we'll move this then on to tonight's meeting. Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First up, we have consider approving the fiscal year 2023 DHS 2091 County Child Care Budget Summary Amendment in the amount of $1,743,516.56, and an increase of $40,101.86 to account for the expanded basic grant funding and authorize board chair to sign the same. We've seen this every year. I said there's been some changes, mostly on the amount we can add. And there's a couple extra programs. I believe we have online our court administrator, Carrie Curtis, if you want to go into some of the changes that's a little bit different.
Sure. So in January, the basic grant reimbursement was expanded to add another $41,000 plus dollars. Basic grant funds are 100% reimbursable. So we wanted to quickly take advantage of that opportunity and added some money for programming we already had, our counseling, psychological, substance abuse, and drug testing. We also started or asked for reimbursement for a couple of other programs. One is brand new, but the other one you're probably a little familiar with is electronic monitoring. It has become a really important part of our court processes now that there are so few juvenile beds available. Often that's the only way that we can make sure the community stays as safe as possible, as well as the youth. So we're now able to get about $12,000 of that expense reimbursed at 100% to the county. So that is great news. We also are doing a Prime for Life in-house. Youth who have citations for alcohol, tobacco, or marijuana, they're required to take a class. Sometimes that class is by statute. So we found out a few months ago that that class was no longer offered locally. So we quickly realized we could do that in-house using our own talented staff. So we have 2 staff who are currently finishing the certification, and they're going to start offering that Prime for Life programming for our youth. So we're really excited about that. It'll add some additional flexibility to when the youth can have the programming, as well as the number of youth that we can put in it. There's also no cost to our youth. They used to have to pay for the program, and now it's free. So that will also help with some of those financial barriers that we see. The final thing is the youth garden. That has been in the community for many years. The county usually gives us $1,000 a year. The garden spots are donated by the fairgrounds in the city of Mount Pleasant. So we're now able to get an extra $5,000 for that program, which we are super excited about. So it really gives youth an opportunity during the summer when there's no school to serve their community service, but also learn life lessons and get some really good life skills there. So we are really excited about that program as well. So those are the changes that we're asking for. And the best news is it's all 100% reimbursable, not 50, 100.
Any questions? As you know, one of my main concern was because we're responsible for 50% of the childcare, and it's always one that I always kind of watch because that could get real expensive in a big hurry. But to see that they actually have more money available is a nice trend. Hopefully it continues. So if there isn't any more questions, we will move this forward to tonight's business session. Okay, next up, we have consider approving the fiscal year 2024 Isabella County Community Correction Plan in the application amount of $110,276. And I think we have Andrew Foster here, the CCAB coordinator. Pretty similar to last year's, a few minor changes you want to go through?
Yeah, so it is very similar to last year's. The major change that we have is a opiate and meth specific programming through TRICAP, which is a 150-day program. it's a good long program for people with specified meth and opiate addiction issues. So there's 366 groups for the 21-week period that this course is. And there's also 16 individual counseling sessions included in this, along with all the other TRICAP stuff that we're not billed for at all. So the probation residential services through TRICAP is already its own thing. This is just for the opiate and meth specific programming. So it's a good program from what I've heard. And we're asking the state to fund 5 people in next year's grant just to see how it goes and see if we can use it and utilize it for our community.
Hey, do you have any questions? I would like to comment, though, there is some of the services, if we didn't have this grant, we'd still have to fund. So to not accept the grant would be kind of foolish, so.
Yes. I'd just say, great to see you, open up the program and add that opiate meth program for people. And, I think 150-day program for those people to try to get back on track is a good opportunity to look into for the county.
Yeah, I think it's worth a try for sure.
Okay, any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's business session. Thank you, Mr. Foster.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the Criminal Justice and County Affairs docket, consider approving the agreement between Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Isabella County Youth Farm Fair for supplemental patrol coverage during the 2023 Isabella County Youth and Farm Fair, and authorize board chair to sign the same. Of course, we have Sheriff Maine here to tell us about this contract. It's only been a small change, I think, in hours covered to make it more efficient.
Correct. This is boilerplate from the last several years that we've done this. It's a good partnership with the fair. They appreciate it. Last year, when I say we, I mean the undersheriff and myself, dealt with several incidents early on in the evening hours, some juvenile stuff, and kind of run us in circles a little bit there. So we talked to the fair board about changing the hours and getting a little more visibility there, maybe curbing some of that rowdy activity that we don't really appreciate. So we're going to move them from 8 to midnight. Typically, there's nothing after midnight, and I'll just have the rollers or the cars that are on the road swing through and do that. So the fair was okay with that. They were appreciative that we were there, but I think they'll be helpful to have some more visibility during that times when they're having things on the midway and out on the track and stuff. So other than that, it doesn't cost anything. The numbers are updated and not much more to say about that one.
Are there any questions about the contract with the youth?
Just a comment, you hear people are getting together for a good social time and you still have events where you have fights and the like. It's unfortunate. It's part of our society.
I may have mentioned that to one that why would you come to the 4-H Youth and Farm Fair to get in a fight? So I was not very happy. So yeah, he didn't get the picture. He'd just been let out of another jail in another county. So a couple days prior.
All right, seeing no further questions, we'll move this on to tonight's agenda. Next up, consider approving equipment shelter sale and removal relocation and license agreement between Consumers Energy Company and Isabella County on behalf of Isabella County Sheriff's Office. And Sheriff, man, tell us about our deal on the shelter.
This is probably the best deal I'll ever make with the county. This is a great one. So if you recall back several months ago, we were awarded through appropriations, and now it's a grant to the state of Michigan, $4.8 million for our radio tower and radio equipment upgrade that will benefit every police agency in the county, every EMS agency, the fire agencies, and so forth, anybody that uses that. The goal is to put a 190-foot monopole tower at Mark Griffiths' shop there at Dispatch, which will penetrate the hospitals, the box stores, all the way out to the tribal entities, and provide us some much needed help there for radio communications that we don't have right now in that area. It's kind of limited. So part of this whole process, the shelter houses the hardware and gadgets and widgets and whatever else that the tower uses to operate on. The tower, or I'm sorry, the shelter, I'm being told from both Motorola and MPSCS, which is the communication system for the state, run around $450,000 to $500,000. That I can probably get in the business of brick and mortar if that works. Like, that's a pretty good gig. But so long story short, the state has said that Consumers Power, who I believe is coming onto some of their the MPSCS's sites, had shelters available. So there was some concern that there'd be a lot of upgrade to it and so forth. This particular shelter is in Higgins Lake. The Motorola engineers and techs went and looked at it. They said it's in great shape. It might need an air conditioning unit replaced, but other than that, probably not a lot of upgrade to it. So during a couple of conversations with Motorola and MPSCS and Consumers, I finally asked the magic question of how much, and they said $1.
Wow.
We'll take it. Now, there is some caveats with that. It's about 40,000 plus pounds. So it's going to require a crane on both ends and a special hauler. And so we're going to have 15, 20, 30,000 probably into getting it from point A to point B. We need to build a place for it to set at Mark's shop. But long story, we'll probably save $300,000 or $400,000 before we're done on this. So it was a good find. It was a good catch by the state. It'll help our project to go farther. We'll use those dollars for different and better things, you know, and so forth. So that's the process. It'll be nice too to use this $1 reimbursement, because we're, you know, I have one coming to you next round that's not $1, not even close. So it'll be nice to process this through for the reimbursement under $1 to see how the system works, and we can work any bugs out with $1 versus the next one that's got a comma in it, a couple, you know. So that's pretty much it. It's just part of this process, and fortunately, it's not costing us anything. We'll get reimbursed hopefully right away, and when we're done, we're going to have a pretty robust radio system in the county that'll help all public safety and others. So.
Vice Chair.
I know when you first brought the good news of the state funds coming in for this project, you had indicated there were like 3 or 4 different phases that would continue on depending on how the budget would move forward. How are we looking on that in that regard?
So good. Motorola calls it milestones. So basically what that is, like, the first milestone was like the kickoff meeting, which lasted about 20, maybe 15 minutes. That triggered the first invoice, which is after this one, which is 450 some thousand. So it's a pretty good milestone, right? But we'll break those up. You know, there'll be a bigger one when we buy the radios and portables for all the police agencies. And those, of course, older radios that we have will disseminate down to fire departments and everybody else that needs them too. But we will break that up. I've had some pretty clear conversations with both the state and Motorola, and I'll continue to, because they don't seem to hear me sometimes, that we are going to build the tower. We're going to turn the tower on, and we're going to test the tower before we buy anything else. That way, if we need to put some things called BDAs or bidirectional antennas in other areas, we haven't spent our money on portables and mobiles and not have an infrastructure that they work on, right? So we don't want that. So I've been very clear with that. They would like to move everything along as fast as possible. I get that, but that's not going to be the process. So we're not paying anything until phase 1, which is the radio towers up, lights are turned on, plugged in, and we'll go out the next day. The police agency will go out and we'll test the living daylights out of it. And we'll know where the failures are at. The maps show that it should be very good. It should penetrate all of our buildings that we want to penetrate. We do know down in Shepherd at the school, we'll probably have to put a couple of BDAs in there, and that was part of the plan to put a couple in there to make sure that school's covered. The other schools in the west are kind of covered already because the tower's closer and it works better. So it will be in phases. You know, the 450,000 that's coming, and then it'll be probably the biggest one. I'm guessing it'll be about 1.2 million. That'll be the big one that we'll have to really pay attention and work with Administrator Frost's office and the treasurer's office to make sure we're not affecting any general funds and so forth. our goal is to get this reimbursement process down to a science where just 2 or 3 weeks, we have the money right back into the general fund. So that's the goal going forward here.
Any other questions? I look forward to the project.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move that on to tonight's regular session. And with that ends the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs.
Very good, gentlemen. You've earned your wages for this week, for 2-week period. Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Our first item is consider approving the proposed pay raise for the 5 designated part-time year-round Isabella County Parks and Recreation Park Rangers, non-union employee wage scale, pay grades 1 to 4. We have Miranda Walker, our Parks and Recs interim director, to give us the background on this. Hi, Miranda.
Yeah, so last year, our department was approved to have up to 5 year-round part-time park rangers. Last year, we were able to utilize 4 of these 5 positions. These 4 individuals are continuing to work for us for this year, for 2023. These 4 individuals have been a huge support to our field staff, and they have taken on greater responsibility with training and supervising of some of our new seasonal park rangers. Currently, these 4 individuals are on the county wage scale at a grade 2 or 3. And then, as you recall, this past January, we were approved to utilize a pay range for our seasonal park rangers. The pay range was based off of the county wage scale, and it incorporated grades 1 through 4. So this range is giving us more flexibility with our starting wages, and it's also allowing us to stay more competitive with other local businesses. So to help us stay competitive and retain our existing qualified park rangers, we are asking for the same flexibility of using the park ranger pay range of $10.73 to $16.25 per hour for the 5 year-round designated part-time park rangers. I wanted to also mention, if we do continue to use the county wage scale for these 5 positions, then a few of the individuals who are returning this year are going to be making less than a new seasonal park ranger. And again, we're relying on these 5 positions to help us and support us with training some of these new seasonal staff. So like in this example, the trainer would be making less than the person that they are training. So we're just hoping that we can also use a pay range for these 5 positions. It will help us to fill our final 5th year-round part-time position. And it's also going to help in retaining, the skilled workers that we already have.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? Vice Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.
I appreciate you looking into trying to maintain a dependable workforce. I know I looked last year and there was so much turnover in parks, and I'm just wondering how you're able to keep the services at a high standard, because it does involve safety of visitors and the like. So thinking out of the box. Thank you.
Yeah, and that 10% retention is helping. We did notice last year, we didn't have quite as much turnover as in previous years, but I think that 10% retention for our seasonal workers is definitely helping.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, this will be on our this evening's agenda for action. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That concludes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Vice Chair.
We do not have any intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller presentation, no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. Commissioner Embry, would you mind introducing this? I'd have given you some advance notice, but I didn't have the opportunity.
Consider changing the start time of the Isabella County Finance and Administration Committee meeting to 11 o'clock a.m. for the remainder of the 2023 calendar year. The intent behind this is to allow us an opportunity to sit with the project manager and the folks at Clark to get updates on a regular basis so that we can report back to you and also keep us in the loop of exactly where they stand almost to the minute. I think it's important. Putting out there, important that we stay on top of this.
I would just add that, and Sheriff, I would give you advance notice if I had thought to. I want to make sure you hear this too. Some of the commissioners, and I think very rightfully so, have taken a deeper level of interest in the jail project, especially as, ground starts to move actually. And you're going to be posed with a lot of questions, right? So Chairman Hope, Vice Chairman Jelazinski, and Commissioner Embry are going to start weekly attending the Tuesday progress meetings of the project. So these Tuesday meetings, Clark Construction kind of runs those meetings, if you will, project manager, construction manager. And a lot of the subcontractors attend and the architects and the engineers attend. And those Tuesday meetings are really kind of the update that Heidi gave tonight. Will be about that. It'll all be about scheduling and what's currently going on and what's happening next week and 3 weeks out and what to expect and what are we behind on and those type of, a lot of scheduling. It's a very Tuesday's a very positive, let's move the project forward type of meeting. So that standing meeting is 10 o'clock on Tuesdays, exactly when finance meets. So that's why the suggestion to move finance so that they can attend. Then they'll also be attending every other week. We have a 10 a.m. I can't remember what they call it, OIC, but I couldn't tell you what it stands for. Some construction term. Every other Thursday we meet. That's more of an administrative. Let's talk about what's happening in the project. Are there any administrative issues, any permitting issue, things that could slow the project down? That's where that meeting, that's where those things would be vetted out. So between those meetings and that one happens every other week, essentially, you'll be having a lot more frequent and more thorough, I would expect, updates projects.
And we'll have to make sure the chair moves the meeting along so we don't have any more of those 2-hour meetings. Because we'll cut into lunchtime for some people. Okay, we'll have this on tonight's agenda. The second item, Commissioner Hutchinson, would you mind taking that one?
Yep. B, consider scheduling an Isabella County Board of Commissioners special meeting for the purpose of goal settings on Wednesday, April 12th, 2023 at 2 p.m. in the room 320 at the county building located 200 North Main Street in Mount Pleasant. And this is a goal setting process that we all want to be involved in and come up with ideas and get this out there so we can post it.
This is kind of a reschedule because we had a person who got ill, the last one. Hope we didn't make her ill.
Absolutely not.
Looking forward to the 12th and to be able to talk about, again, the opportunities and challenges that we face as a governing board to do the best we can for our citizens. So that'll be on tonight's meeting then. Are there any questions on that?
One thing, and this kind of goes back to the last item. We're really not trying to micromanage. We're just concerned that we just want to.
We have good representation in administration. It just we'd like to have a little bit more information from the chair and to give support to administration as we make those decisions. I'm sure there's going to be decisions that come along and we'll be faced with that as a whole board. So. We can move on then to general public comments. Finger pointing out there, but nobody's coming up to the mic. Anybody online? All right. Next, we'll move on to announcements then. Are there any announcements from the board? Speechless. Okay.
It's quiet.
Our last item before adjournment is to go into closed session to consider under section 8E of the Open Meetings Act to consult with attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with the national opioid litigation. May I have a motion?
Vice Chair, move that we go in closed session.
Support.
We have the motion to read the whole thing again.
You should always state why in the motion that we're going to close session,
Sure.
even if it's
Mr.
redundant.
Chairman, I move that we consider entering into a closed session under section 8E of the Open Meeting Act to consult with the attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with the national opioid litigation.
It's been moved and supported. Madam Clerk, please roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Madam Clerk. We need to turn the mics off.
And no, we actually need to go into the breakout room, which I think Michelle is sending us right there, and also
Meeting room, breakout room. But don't leave meeting. If you leave.
Just leave room.
Yep, just leave room or leave breakout room. Yep, leave breakout room.
Story of my life.
Right.
Okay, now we're all back in there.
Well, there being no further business in the work session, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. We are adjourned. Oh, all in favor signify by saying aye. We are adjourned.
Marino.
I'm gonna call that at
5:10.
9. It's a big one, isn't it?
Okay, look at that.
Pretty big.
It's a
Man.
We always have, Commissioner, I don't think that, I don't.
I've read them a lot of
It's not
times.
required.
Read the exhibits.
I think it's just something we have always done. So as the chair of the meeting, it would be up to you.
Item two. Correct?
Yes, here it is. Whoever wants to add it or read it, there it is.
I have a volunteer, we will read it. All right.
The meeting on. Yes. I'm sorry, you don't want to.